Okay, so maybe this isn't as brutal as I've led you to believe, but these are all still really good things to know and understand. So let's hop into this. If you can think of something else to do that you'd be just as happy doing as opposed to being an artist every day of your life, go do it. It's an easier life. You'll probably make more money. You might even be happier. You'll have more stable relationships. Now, that's not saying don't make art on the side, or don't make art when you feel like it or don't feel like it. It also isn't saying that don't try to build towards art as a career, But it also says be aware that you can be happy doing more than one thing. You don't have to be stuck being an unsuccessful or a successful artist if you have other options. Other options are a great thing. At one point, someone asked me, don't you think that's a little bit gatekeepy? And I said, no, I really don't think that it is. And the reason it is about what I'm about to say is it makes people really think about their choices. The word no, coming from a gallery, coming from a potential sale, coming from anyone, doesn't mean no forever. It means not right now. And a lot of people have a lot of trouble with this because we don't really like to hear negatives from people. But, there's a couple of things that can happen. Maybe your work isn't as good as you think it is. Maybe your work will get better in a year. I bet that it will get better in a year. And possibly the ideas around our culture change and your work suddenly becomes super interesting. This has happened to artists time and time and time again. And it's worth remembering that no does not mean no forever. Write that one down, because that's a keeper as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I didn't write it down, but it's always in my head, if you know what I mean. So that's kind of what I do. Networking and self-promotion is crucial. And it's something we all kind of hate to talk about, but it's really true. The ability to promote yourself, the ability to go and network into a group of people and meet people, it's so important to how you get met and seen and realized as an artist. It's almost funny to talk about at this point. Here's the thing. I'm not good at networking. I've never been good at networking. What I'm good with is meeting 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people, keeping that group kind of small, developing relationships, and then kind of slowly growing that. That's what I do. If you go to a party and you're the guy that all 500 people or however many people might be at the party just love, well, goddamn, I wish I could be you, but I'm not. So I have to network the way I have to network. I meet people and I kind of drift out into bigger circles as I kind of get introduced into them. There's lots of ways to network. Find the way that works for you. Now, self-promotion, I'm like a C+. I'm okay on Instagram. I'm okay on Facebook. I'm okay on YouTube. Thanks for watching, by the way. The next one is a little more important. It's critique. And critique is useless if you can't take action on it. In other words, if someone gives you a critique and says, well, these paintings are great, but they should be sculptures, they should be this, they should be that, and you don't have any ability to do that work, then that critique is worthless to you. It's just somebody's idea of what something could be. If you get a critique from a painter or a painting instructor or someone who actually kind of understands painting, they give you some this area is this area is that. Have you thought about why you're using this material versus that material? Those are really honest to God valid critiques. But if someone just critiques because they want to hear themselves talk about, sculpture, art povera, however they want to term it, that you're using the wrong materials, your materials aren't queer enough, your materials are too mainstream, they're too cis, whatever, none of that really works. The materials you're using are the materials you choose to use. If you choose to change, that's great. But if someone gives you a critique and you can't take any of those points into actionable items, it's an invalid critique. Just walk away from it. You don't have to dislike the person, but you also know you probably don't have to ask them for critique ever again. So that's a good thing to know. The Steve Jobs quote shows just how fucking idiotic Steve Jobs really was about art and culture. And I know. Everyone fucking loves Steve Jobs, and I appreciate that. And, he's a genius and whatever. But the fact is, he really didn't invent anything on his own. He invented it with teams. His ideas were basic, and they pushed them further. The quote I'm talking about is, good artists invent, great artists steal. Not even his quote. That quote's been attributed to Picasso. It's also been attributed to Stravinsky. So Jobs isn't terribly original at what he thinks about. Knock him off a pedestal. You can go like this, wearing a black turtleneck and a pair of jeans and be a Silicon Valley genius or whatever. Go for it. But honest to God, the more you hear his name attached to that, you realize kind of how stupid Steve Jobs actually was. And I say that with all due respect. He was still super rich and still super successful, but still an idiot. You can be all three. Sketchbooks are not for finished drawings. And I can't stress this enough. I can't tell you how many people I've seen who may have these sketchbooks. They don't even close. They kind of close like this far because they're like loaded with paint and Ripley paper. And they spend like, honest to God, like 7 hours a day in their sketchbooks. Get out of your sketchbooks. Go into your sketchbooks and do 100 drawings of something and do 50 drawings of something else and mark up some ideas and then actually go try to make one of those things. And you'll find that your sketchbook is someplace where inspiration and ideas live, not where finished art lives. Because quite frankly, it's very few sketchbooks that you can actually literally take a page out of that sketchbook and think, oh yeah, it's a nice finished piece. It's usually not. Edges will be messy, whatever. It just won't work. Use your sketchbook for what it's really intended. It's not a place where you live. The other thing I find really interesting, and this is an aside, we'll call it dash A. I have seen sketchbooks that people submit for colleges. I can't believe colleges think it's really your sketchbook. Because those sketchbooks are like, they're super formal. They're like, here's 18 perfectly drawn ways of I'm thinking about doing this body, and they're perfect and they're pristine and they're super talented people doing them, but it's not a sketchbook. Those are finalized sketches that are never going to leave that sketchbook. Maybe it's part of the new college application process. What do I know? We just had to do 10 pieces of art on 8.5 by 11 paper and then submit that. So maybe a different thing. Getting right towards the end here, but this is kind of the big one, and this is probably why you've been waiting. Art is a business. Learn some things about what makes the art business work and how the art business works. You'll never know everything, but you've got to know some things. And if you only know some things, it's better than knowing nothing. Here's a few examples. Artists and galleries are a 50% split on any sale. The gallery usually has a clause in their paperwork with the artist. They can give a 10% discount anytime, anywhere to close the sale. That 10% discount should really only go towards the gallery. Usually they'll split it. You'll end up 45-45, and the 10% goes off to that client. Secondary market sales are completely different. Some galleries take 20%, some galleries take 50%. Hell, some galleries will try to take more than 50% if they can. It's the way it goes. Auction houses charge both the buyer and the seller. It's well known, look it up. Interior designers, if they're selling your art to their client for their homes, very often, not all, but very often, will mark up your work to their client and also demand a discount from you. They're not evil people for doing this. They're just trying to make a decent living on what they do. I sell a lot of work through designers. I at first was kind of like, boy, that's a big cut. You know, they're doing this. Get it out of your system. You're going to be fine. Find designers who like your work and like you. You'll do very well with them. There are people who can send the same package from FedEx and you'll get 7 different prices from 7 different people. And that's for FedEx, DHL, UPS. Certain shippers have certain discounted rates that work in your favor. Find those shippers that have the best rates. Honest to God, send out proposals to people who can ship your work and have them get prices for you. Don't pick 1 or 2 people and just choose one. You will be shocked how inexpensively compared to others your work can ship across country if you need to do that. Okay, coming right down the pike here, we're almost finished. There's a phrase, less is more. Less is also a bore. So, be careful with that, because being ultra minimal may not be what people really want to see, or maybe not even be what you want to be. So keep an eye on that. Same goes with maximalism at the same time. And I think this goes without saying, but be careful of taking advice from YouTubers on the art world. Anyway, that's going to do it for me today. Hope you guys had a good week. It's a crazy world out there, so just be careful. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you can, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.